We wanted to get more insight on these developments and Cuba's relationship with the United States, so we turned to Christopher Sabatini, an expert on Latin America and Senior Director of Policy for the Council of the Americas. Mr. Sabatini, good to see you again.
Nice to see you, Martin.
So we just saw these Russian warships that have sailed into Havana there, and it's the first time they've done that since the collapse of the Soviet Union. So what do we make of the timing of this event?
There are two things. First of all, this is a signal by the Castro regime to the Bush administration that after 8 years of attempts to isolate and even bring down the Castro regime, it is still a free agent. It's still willing and able to make alliances with any country it wants, including a country that has had a deteriorating relationship with the U.S. But it's also a message to the Obama administration, which is to say, you need to engage. We're willing to play with other nations that you may not like if you continue to try to isolate us and humiliate us.
And speaking of engagement, Raul Castro made this offer, it's considered by some to be unprecedented, that he would release some political dissidents in Cuba in return for Cubans that are being held in this country on charges of spying, that they be released. Is this something that President-elect Obama should take up?
No. It would be basically a confirmation of everything the Cuban government has tried to portray, which is that dissidents and human rights activists inside Cuba are lackeys to the U.S. or acting as spies to the U.S. Those that are being held in Cuba right now are basically people that were exercising universally recognized human rights. The Cubans being held in the United States were spies, had infiltrated U.S. organizations and were spying on U.S. Southern Command.
Now, President-elect Obama has said that if Cuba were to release all of its political dissidents and meet other conditions, that he would be willing to re-examine the prospect of lifting the trade embargo. Is this at least perhaps talk of cracking a door?
No, I think this is pure public relations on the part of Raul Castro. Because again, these are not morally equivalent prisoners to swap. Having said that, you do have 200 political prisoners inside Cuba. There is obviously a recognition now on the part of Raul Castro that they exist. And there are going to be areas in which the Obama government is going to try to lighten or unleash some aspects of the embargo.
And I just want to talk about the Latin American countries. They held a summit this week in which they discussed about forming a kind of governmental bloc, kind of like the European Union. They excluded the U.S. and Canada. Should this be considered perhaps a threat to the United States?
No, it's not a threat. It is basically a sign of the evolution of the region, its growing maturity, and the broadening and deepening of its trade ties internally within the region. But last, all of these countries are very diverse. You had Raul Castro there as well as the president of Mexico, all of whom have very different perspectives and very different needs when it comes to their relationship with the United States.
Christopher Sabatini from the Council of the Americas, thank you, as always.
Thank you, Martin.